And welcome to everybody. I'm the Member of Parliament for East Ham. Delighted to welcome all of you here, to see so many people here taking an interest in this really important subject. Very pleased that Global 21 is here again. As Francis has said, I was present last time, and good to see Benoit here as well. And Benoit's been talking to me for some time about the ideas of how we might use drama and young people working together on a film as one way to make some headway on tackling this really important issue of gang and knife crime and the problems that it's causing. As Francis said, I've been a victim of knife crime myself. But 17 teenagers lost their lives in London last year as a result of gang and youth violence, compared with 11 the year before. So that was a big jump last year in the numbers of young people who actually died. Now, in the past, it was worse than that. There was one year, 2008-9, I think, when the number was 29. So we're mercifully not quite back at those levels yet, but it is getting worse. And I think it's urgent that we take action to address it. The Metropolitan Police most recent estimate is that there are 225 recognised gangs in London involving some 3,600 people aged 16 to 24. But there are certainly, mostly aged 16 to 24, but there are certainly younger children than that involved as well. Welcome. Most of the 3,600 are young men, but there are girls as well. And beyond that kind of number of actual gang members, there's a much larger number of young people who are at risk. My colleague Chuka Umuna, some of you may know, is the MP for Streatham. He initiated a debate just a couple of weeks ago here in Westminster. And he was talking about one of his constituents, two of whose sons had been stabbed in recent months, others affected before that as well. And the constituent two of whose sons had been stabbed, Chuka asked him, whether they would have been better staying in Somalia, which was where they originated from. They lived, I think, in Mogadishu, and the father said yes, how much he regretted the fact that the family had moved from Somalia to London and suffered this terrible violence. And, it's a sobering reflection, I think, on the level of danger that young people in London now are facing. So why are young people getting involved in gangs around our city? And I think there's going to be a lot of insight into that subject when we get to the discussion later on this evening. As Francis has said, unfortunately I have to go at 7. There'll be a vote, but you'll see on the screen it'll say division, which means that all the MPs have to go and vote. So that's why I have to leave, and unfortunately I think I'm going to miss some of the discussion as a result. But let me just give you my suggestions about why young people are getting involved. I think sometimes it's just because young people want to belong. Maybe there are problems at home, they don't really feel that they're fitting in at home, or maybe there isn't a problem at home, except that both parents perhaps are having to work very long hours to make ends meet and they're not around very much. And sometimes home isn't the place that young people feel they can properly belong. And so the gang kind of becomes a replacement family. If the young people think they're going to get their needs met by the gang more than by their own family. Welcome. I think we've still got some seats, I think. Yep, some around the back. Of course, it is also the case that there, in many young people's lives and experiences, there just aren't enough things to do in their communities, and cuts have meant that that problem is getting worse. Sometimes, for young people, it is fear they are scared and think that if they're in a gang, they'll be protected from some of the violence that they have observed around them. Sometimes young people join a gang because they think that way they'll get some money, they'll get some consumer durables that they wouldn't otherwise have access to, and we know there is huge sort of materialist pressure on young people to get clothes, accessories that they see a lot of on TV and online and in newspapers, and we shouldn't underestimate the effects of all that pressure that young people are under. Hello, welcome. Plenty of seats over on that side. And let's not forget as well the problem of unemployment amongst young people. Now, unemployment has come down over the last few years, but youth unemployment is still 3 times the overall level of unemployment. I think it's 13-14% overall amongst young people across the country. And amongst young black men, it's much more than that, 35% rate of unemployment amongst young black men. So it's not surprising that some young people feel they've got no alternative, frankly, but to turn to crime and to gangs. So what's to be done about all of this? Well, I think we have to ensure that every young person does have the chance to belong without having to join a gang to get it. And of course there are lots of opportunities that we could draw attention to for that. I must say I'm particularly impressed by the role of faith groups in this area, churches, mosques, temples, where in my constituency I see young people are getting the chance properly to belong, to establish their identity, to perhaps feel more confident about who they are and to be part of something bigger than themselves that they can really believe in. I was speaking at the weekend to a pastor I know called Peter Nembard, who is the pastor of the Ark Church, it's called, in the borough in Newham that I represent. He himself served a prison term when he was a very young man, and he told me at the weekend about a friend, his best friend, who died in his arms after a stabbing. 10 years ago, a member of that church, Charlotte Polius, was stabbed at a party in Ilford and she died. And the Ark Church started up a programme called Stop to Violence after that tragedy. And I remember 10 years ago, I attended the opening event of that, and they've maintained that programme since. And I think they've made a really important contribution through that campaign. And of course, similar things are happening all over London. I'm an admirer of the youth organisation XLP, which works in my borough and others, giving young people opportunities to take part in music and drama, to channel their talents and their energies into really good activities. And we need more of that kind of activity, I think, around London. And I welcome the initiative that Benoit's taken around drama. And one of the things that XLP's done, which I thought was quite a smart idea, is that young people whose roots are in the Caribbean, they've taken to the Caribbean. Young people whose roots are in Ghana, they've taken to Ghana. And I think is an imaginative, rather an expensive way, but it's an imaginative way of being able to allow young people to understand their identities and to perhaps develop their identities more fully as well. I'm strongly opposed, I must say, to reductions in police numbers that we have seen. When this problem was at its worst 8, 9, 10 years ago, in Newham, I saw the police making a huge effort to make the streets safer for young people. And the numbers of fatalities was sharply reduced as a result. And I just don't think we can properly tackle this problem without a large enough number of police officers on the streets helping ward off trouble. and keep young people safe. Welcome. Hello. Plenty of seats over, I think particularly over on that side. There's a number of them. In 2012, the Home Office set up a network of experts who, what they did was they went around visiting different areas in London and outside London and making recommendations about how to make that area safer and to reduce the amount of youth and gang violence. That initiative taken by the coalition government does seem to have been pretty effective, I think. We haven't had a proper evaluation of it. I hope that there will be one. They've produced recommendations for 26 of the 32 London boroughs. I think that's helped. Unfortunately, that is going to be disbanded next month, and there is some doubt whether the arrangements being put in place to replace them are going to be as effective. But, you know, I think we have to recognise that everybody here would agree. This can't just be about saving money. There's something really, really important here about people's lives, and we mustn't skimp on taking the steps needed to ward off some of these problems and reduce the number of young people who are losing their lives. So I really welcome the spotlight that the film is training on this problem, and I'm looking forward in a moment to, I hope, seeing the extract that's going to be played to us. And I think we do all really need to work together, everybody here, across government, police, local councils, voluntary organisations, faith groups, work together to make London safer for young people. And I really hope the activities that we're looking at this evening are going to help.